then we can start. We will start at exactly 11:02. Good morning, everyone. It is 11:02. We will start this event, this roundtable that we're having today. Good morning and welcome to MISTRA's 9th PGM annual roundtable. My name is Ngobile Xaba. I am a researcher at MISTRA and I will be your program director for today. Please kindly engage with us via the Q&A function, and we will address your questions along the program. You can also engage with us using our hashtags, and the hashtags is MISTRA PGM Roundtable as well as PGM Roundtable. The event is also streamed on MISTRA's YouTube. We are also on Twitter, Facebook, as well as on LinkedIn. MISTRA's PGM Roundtable seeks to deepen the discussion on critical minerals as the country embarks on the energy transition in the global effort to cap the impact of climate change. Our esteemed panelists today will cover a variety of topics around clean energy supply chains, including hydrogen, fuel cells, electrolyzers, and batteries, as well as the broader socio-economic imperatives for critical minerals. And our esteemed panelists today include Mr. Joel Netitenze, MISTRA's Executive Director. We will also have Dr. Kavarende Rambau from the Department of Science and Technology. And we will also have Advocate Davi Malungisa from the Southern African Resource Watch. And then we'll have Dr. Olivier Baron, a Chief Scientist from Mintech. And then we'll have Dr. Lebo Mphahlele Ntasa, the Executive Director of Amperion Energy. Our first speaker today is Mr. Netitenze, and he will be giving his opening remarks. Over to you, Edie.
Thank you, Ngobile. Today's MISTRA Roundtable on Platinum Group Metals, as you have said, brings us just 1 year short of what the Spaniards call La Décima, as we approach our 10th roundtable next year in 2025. As we all know, discourse on PGMs and the hydrogen economy has become more widespread than we ever dreamt of when the Mapungubwe Institute published the book on South Africa and the global hydrogen economy 11 years ago, and the ensuing booklet on South African PGM exchange 5 years later. The MISTRA Annual Roundtable provides a unique opportunity for reflection, and what is important for me is that the discussion has evolved more towards monitoring and evaluation of progress in implementation. So one can say wishes have become green hydrogen horses, and all and sundry can now ride. From workers to engineers to researchers to venture capitalists to public policy makers to mining companies and manufacturers. And MISTRA is proud to have been a key part of that journey, working with the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation and the multitude of other partners who operate in this field. The Hydrogen Society Roadmap and its offshoots, such as the Green Hydrogen Commercialization Strategy, speak to the journey that we have traveled. And indeed, the more platforms of engagement, the merrier. What guides our approach to this area of endeavor? As MISTRA, we believe that all of us have a responsibility. One, to meet the objective of becoming a leading player in the hydrogen and fuel cell industry by developing capacities to become an indispensable part of the whole value chain, from mining to refining, manufacturing, and services. Two, to identify gaps in the evolution of the country's efforts and address them in a deliberate, collaborative, and focused manner. Three, to ensure that the benefits of the emergent industry accrue to all, including workers and communities and young people in a variety of skills. And one can add that the other element is to guarantee global security of supply of green hydrogen, PGMs, and other critical minerals by fostering a stable, peaceful, and mutually beneficial investment environment. Further, with companies such as Bambili, Isondo, Mitochondria, and others, the country can generate a core of Black industrialists with empowerment that is organic. And we can say with confidence that progress is being made all round, but as with any strategic undertaking, we need to challenge ourselves constantly on the pace of implementation, including finding practical solutions to gaps and weaknesses as they emerge. For instance, can we speed up implementation of such initiatives as the Mpumalanga long-term purchase contracts for green hydrogen and derivatives, the Buchebai and Saldana projects, the N3 hydrogen corridor, the Hive project at Ngquga SEZ, and the phasing in of green hydrogen in hard-to-abate sectors. Globally, when one does a brief scan of developments over the past year, you can see that progress is being made. It is estimated that some 35 million tons of green hydrogen will be produced by 2030, and it will form 20% of the European energy mix by 2050. Besides the many stationary applications of fuel cells, we now have fuel cell electric trains, small and large vehicles, ships, bikes, and even aircraft that are increasingly populating the transport arteries of Europe, the US, Korea, Japan, and China, among others. It is estimated that there will be 1 million fuel cell electric vehicles in China alone by 2035. And there is promising research on PGM-based electric batteries that are not only lighter, but also have high energy density. Now, among the immediate challenges in dealing with critical minerals is the need to find the appropriate balance between supply and demand. In this regard, questions have been posed as to whether auctions should not be used on both the supply side and the demand side of the equation. There is also a need to source finance for the many viable and bankable projects. regulations and standards, particularly with regard to green hydrogen, need to be developed as a matter of urgency. And we must crack the code of hydrogen energy intensity and cost of production and storage. Mitochondria, which is building electrolyzer and fuel cell plants in South Africa, has identified supply of fuel cell and related components as a major challenge. Isondo has raised similar concerns about intermediate capacities in the value chain. Beyond this, the Mapungubwe Institute and other partners, which include the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, are striving for consensus on setting up a metals exchange in the country for endowments that we have in abundance rather than advantaging other jurisdictions. Now, some have asked whether the hydrogen economy and other transition technologies are hyped and need a reality check. They point to some companies which are scaling back or shelving their plans. But skepticism and commercial ebbs and flows are not uncommon with nascent technologies. Our answer must be to demonstrate the industry's viability in the blast furnace of actual practice, and South Africa should be in the lead in that regard. And so you are all welcome, and we hope today's discussion will help to raise our efforts to an even higher pedestal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edie, for those wonderful remarks. And please engage us on the Q&A function. We will address the questions as the program moves along. Also engage with us online using two hashtags, hashtag MISTRA PGM Roundtable, hashtag PGM Roundtable. We are on Twitter, Facebook, as well as LinkedIn. Our next speaker is Dr. Kabarende Rambau from the Department of Science and Technology, who will speak to us about the progress of the Hydrogen Society Roadmap. Over to you, Kabarende.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just share my presentation. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kabarende Rambau, and I'm from the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation under the Hydrogen and Energy Chief Directorate, and I'm the Acting Director for the Transport, Fuels and Renewable Energy portfolio. I'm pleased to be here today to share with you some of the updates in relation to the Hydrogen Society Roadmap, and thank you, Mr. Joel, for providing such a nice overview of some of the activities that have already transpired. I would start off with the background on how the hydrogen journey in South Africa started and some of the activities in relation to that. I will then give an update on the Hydrogen Society Roadmap and also paint a picture in terms of the creation of what DSTI is doing in terms of creating export markets and some of the national and regional cooperation in relating to hydrogen, and also discuss some of the opportunities for regional integration. And I will close off with key messages. The hydrogen journey in South Africa started through the development of the National Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Technology RDI strategy, which was approved by Cabinet in 2007, and it was aimed at positioning South Africa as a global leader in hydrogen production and fuel cell technologies, leveraging the country's unique natural resource endowment in platinum group metals. And the strategic goals was to ensure we establish a base for hydrogen production, storage, and other related processes, and also develop value-added components that are based on PGM metals. While doing so, we'll look towards building capacity to address a niche application of tailored to regional developmental challenges. Subsequent to that, this led to the development of the Hydrogen South Africa program, which is also known as the HISA program, which is implemented by the Hydrogen South Africa Centers of Competence or HISA COCs, which are co-hosted by 5 institutes. And the HISA COCs are actually strategically structured in such a way of a hub and spokes manner to ensure that we stimulate partnership and attract partnership between academia, public sector, and also private sector. The COCs have developed a range of expertise ranging from the entire hydrogen value chain from production towards hydrogen system and integration, and have developed components in relation to catalyst-coated membranes, membrane electrode assemblies, and also hydrogen metal hydrides for specific application for both stationary and mobile application. And this shows that this has been intensive investment by the government to ensure that we create value-added components that are based on platinum group metals that can ensure South Africa plays a critical role towards the global hydrogen value chain. The HISA Centers of Competence has an array of intellectual property rights, both granted or filed, within 14 countries, including South Africa, with expertise ranging from development of fuel cell components, water electrolyzers, catalyst coating system, just to name a few. And 70% of these IPs are already linked to commercial products, of which is facilitated by some of the spin-off companies that we have supported to ensure that we commercialize the output products. The value-added components have actually been tested and validated through various deployments within South Africa. And this slide shows the geographical location of various deployments that were done, ranging from powering critical infrastructure, such as the one military hospital during the COVID-19 pandemic, and also powering forklifts and refueling infrastructure, and also refueling infrastructure deployment at Impala Platinum refineries. We've also deployed fuel cell powered scooters at a South African Post Office headquarters. The aim of deploying the value-added components across South Africa is also to assist in service delivery, but also creating a conducive ecosystem for local manufacturing of the value-added components that are based on platinum group metals. Subsequent to the success of the hydrogen program, we developed the Hydrogen Society Roadmap, which is the national framework of facilitating the integration of green hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cell technologies within various sectors within our economy, and to also ensure that we assist the commercialization of some of the value-added components that we have developed using the HISA program. South Africa is of the view that hydrogen is actually a game changer in terms of decarbonizing hard-to-abate industries and also reindustrialization of our economy. And we can play a potential role of providing cost-effective green hydrogen and green ammonia towards the global market. The Hydrogen Society Roadmap has high-level outcomes, 6 high-level outcomes, namely, of which are directly talking towards the net zero ambitions of South Africa, responding to the Just Transition Framework, and also responding to the Integrated Resource Plan. Amongst the high-level outcomes, we have key action items underneath each high-level outcome, which there are various departments that are actually responsible for. For instance, the DSTI is responsible for the creation of manufacturing sector for hydrogen products and components by leveraging our PGM metals through the HISA centers of competences using our publicly funded developed IP. And we have the support of various departments such as your DTIC and DMRE, which is currently now the Department of Energy and Electricity and Energy, and the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources. So each high value outcome has a specific department that is assigned and needs to be accountable in ensuring that each high level outcome is met. South Africa plays a huge competitive advantage towards the developing hydrogen economy because of our renewable energy resources and also our vast land that we have. We can also leverage our existing port infrastructures to ensure that we participate in the export market of green hydrogen and green ammonia, while also leveraging our strategic trade partnerships with countries such as Japan, South Korea, and also within the European Union. We also have expertise towards the Fischer-Tropsch processes, which Sasol has, and the HISA program is also participating in ensuring that the PGM metals participate within the hydrogen economy. Within the Hydrogen Society Roadmap, we have various catalytic projects that have been identified to stimulate the hydrogen economy. And the DSTI consistently has been playing a role in terms of facilitating partnerships with various stakeholders, both locally and internationally, to assist in the implementation of such catalytic projects. The DSTI is currently also playing a critical role within the Bohobay Special Economic Zone by participating in the working group on the Strategic Environmental Assessment working group for the Bohobay Special Economic Zone. We're also assisting in terms of creation of an ecosystem of export within for green hydrogen and green ammonia. And recently we have embarked on international trips towards Japan to ensure partnership, identifying various stakeholders that can be potential off-takers, that can be strategic investors with and also engagements with original equipment manufacturers to ensure local manufacturing of value-added components within South Africa. While we're doing this international engagements to ensure the stimulation of green hydrogen ammonia, we take along some of our SMMEs and key participants within South Africa that are playing within the green hydrogen economy and green ammonia. We are also supporting the Platinum Valley Initiative, also known as one of the hydrogen, is known as a Hydrogen Valley. And within the Hydrogen Valley, there's a feasibility study that identified 9 catalytic projects ranging from mobility, building, and also industry that would stimulate domestic demand within South Africa, starting from Mogalakwena in Limpopo, Johannesburg, and Durban. And it has been identified through the feasibility study report that approximately 1.2 billion USD will be needed to activate the valley. The first demonstration of the PVI was using the hydrogen fuel cell heavy duty mining truck that was done at Anglo Platinum, and the DSTI is currently participating on the phase 2 of implementing one of the other projects within the Platinum Valley Initiative with various consortium members. To continue facilitating the development of the Platinum Valley Initiative, the DSTI is supporting the Coal CO2 to X program, which uses carbon capture and use technology to capture carbon dioxide and SO2 and convert it to ammonium bicarbonate, sulfuric acid, and ammonium sulfate, which are essential for fertilizer manufacturing and desalination of seawater for hydrogen production purposes. We're also The processes also used green hydrogen, which can be a way of stimulating green hydrogen domestic demand within South Africa, and also uses green ammonia. The technology has been demonstrated at PPC Cement in Dwelboom, Limpopo last year in January. And we've also demonstrated it early this year at Kelvin Power Station in March 2024. And currently we're working towards demonstrating it at a larger scale at a power station. We work also towards the decarbonization of the transportation sector. We're using our HISA centers of competences. We have the HISA Center of HISA Infrastructure, which is currently working in partnership with Toyota to develop a mobile refueling station, indicating and strengthening partnership with original equipment manufacturers for the sake of local manufacturing using value-added components from PGM metals. Seeing the vast range of activities within the hydrogen economy, the DSTI went to Cabinet this year, where we got an approval to establish an interministerial committee on hydrogen economy. The interministerial hydrogen committee will oversee some of the activities in relation to hydrogen economy, and also will assist in the coordination efforts of all the activities that are happening within South Africa. The committee will be chaired by the Deputy President of the country, and then various departments, ministers will be part of the committees, which will then be supported by various Director Generals of each department that needs to participate as indicated on the high-level outcomes. The initiative in itself will also include partnership across private sector and the public and academia to ensure that we have a coordinative system in terms of having the hydrogen economy. The DSTI continues to have engagements with various countries to ensure that we create an export market for green hydrogen and green ammonia. Recently, our minister actually signed a memorandum of cooperation with Japan in relation to hydrogen to assist in collaboration and creation of partnerships with the aim of developing hydrogen related technologies, and also doing some piloting work between the two countries, and also playing a critical role in terms of the export market of green hydrogen. South Africa has also become a member of the Clean Fuel Ammonia Association late last year, which our minister announced early this year, with the aim of promoting international collaboration on green ammonia and development. Such partnership in green ammonia research and technology with HISA infrastructure. Such partnership in green ammonia has led partnerships such as the SATRAPs in research, technology, and innovation with regards to the development of green ammonia production with HISA infrastructure, SASOL, and Japan. We also have had national cooperation in green hydrogen, where last year's three provincial governments, namely the Western, the Northern, and the Eastern Cape, signed an MOU to cooperate on the development of green hydrogen economy in South Africa. We've also had Sasol and Anglo and BMW signing an MOU that will bring hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles and supporting hydrogen fueling infrastructure to South Africa. This is some of the initiatives that can assist in terms of stimulating domestic demand within South Africa, but also would play a critical role in terms of leveraging some of our existing ports by creating partnership between the three Cape provinces. The DSTI continues to support regional cooperation with some of the SADC countries. And of recent, our Deputy Minister participated in the Global African Hydrogen Summit with the aim of endorsing regional cooperation on green hydrogen to achieve economies of scales with the region and anchoring on the three Cape MOUs that I mentioned before. Later on, a meeting occurred between our Deputy Minister on exploring regional partnership in green hydrogen through the Western Corridor, namely the Saldanha Bay Port, Boegoebaai Port in Namibia, with the aim of leveraging the upcoming or aforementioned pipeline between Namibia and Northern Cape. That is currently a feasibility study is currently being done to see if it would be feasible to have a pipeline between the two sides. There are various opportunities that we can collaborate in terms of within our region. We can look towards deployment of cross-border infrastructure, such as pipelines as indicated. That's some of the initiatives that Namibia and the Northern Cape are doing to link production site centers, and also promote research, development, and innovation using our science councils, our universities, and region in order to ensure that we have technological optimization and also cost reduction towards the production of hydrogen. We can also implement strategic demonstration and deployment of projects aimed at stimulating the development of shared infrastructure. And the DSTI has fully demonstrated the ability to test and validate various technologies in related to hydrogen throughout South Africa. Supporting skills and development and also working towards public awareness will also be a key role in this regard. And we can also facilitate in regional collaboration on the exploration, responsible sourcing, and beneficiation of critical minerals essential for hydrogen economy. We can also work towards the development of a supply chain that supports the deployment of emerging low-carbon energy technologies. And lastly, we can facilitate the establishment of manufacturing facilities within the member states that allow the integration of locally developed IP where appropriate, which can be one of the things to stimulate local manufacturing in South Africa. The key takeaways are the global developments in the energy transition provide the southern region with an opportunity to create new industries linked to minerals required for low carbon energy technologies. And the availability of critical minerals within the southern region offers opportunities for local value addition, regional integration, and also industrialization. The region can also leverage the developments in the renewable energy and hydrogen economy to position itself as a global player in the provision of low emission hydrogen, ammonia, and sustainable aviation fuels. We can also scale up the skills development initiative in partnership with private sector to build the local expertise needed for local value addition and manufacturing. It is also important to note that innovation takes time, and the hydrogen economy is continuously evolving and would require consistent support. And this we call on to partnership between academia, public sector, and also the private sector. Thank you. These are some of the demonstrations that we've done so far at the DSTI, showcasing some of the expertise that we have achieved so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kabarende, for that illuminating presentation regarding South Africa's progress on the hydrogen economy. So we will take a few questions for the first two speakers, and then we will also have another Q&A after the next three speakers have spoken. So I think you have touched on a number of things, basically around building domestic capacity as well as reindustrialization, domestically building the value chains around hydrogen. I think maybe can you speak a little bit about the potential for hydrogen export, as well as how has South Africa approached that regarding the technology as well as the standards as well as hydrogen transport, the issues around that. How do we envision tapping into the existing hydrogen export market?
Thank you. As indicated, there's various activities around South Africa that are talking towards the hydrogen export market. For example, we have the Hive a project at Kuha, that is looking towards exporting green ammonia, which can be converted into green hydrogen. So currently they've had an MOU signed with Hitachi, which is a Japanese company, which is actually something that happened subsequently after our minister signed the MOC. So those are one of the activities that the government has helped in terms of ensuring that the private sector sort of facilitates with other countries in terms of stimulating the export. So those are some of the things that are currently happening. As we're speaking, we're going to have Japanese delegation that is going to do a site visit in South Africa to see some of our infrastructure and some of the projects. And those are some of the collaboration that the DSTI is facilitating between the private sector and also the private sector in Japan. So we're continuously building these relationships to ensure that we actually participate in the global hydrogen market. In relation to the studies, we have South Africa is actually chairing the IPHE. It's the chair for the IPHE. And it's headed by the Department of Science and Innovation through our Chief Director, Dr. Rebecca Maserumule. And one of the working groups is on hydrogen standards. So those are some of the things already that South Africa is working and ensuring that we co-chair and sort of align with some of the international standards and ensure that for us to actually start exporting, we ensure that all of our products are in line with some of the international standards. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think you've spoken to the regional cooperation as well as regional partnerships around Namibia that the country is considering. And that is in relation to one of the comments that we have received. And the second question that we have on the chart is around, are these projects linked to claiming any carbon credits for the country? That can be also used to raise money for overseas countries or to raise money to fund some of these projects. Basically, are there any initiatives that are linked to carbon credits in your understanding or in your
At this point, no, I remember I indicated we're doing testing and validation, but however, the government is quite aware of how CBAM will affect South Africa in that regard. So we've had a lot of partnership with GIZ where they had to sort of assist private sector in terms of how they can work towards certification and ensuring that their products actually meet with some of the limitations that Europe has set out. So the projects in themselves, we're trying to rather prove the bankability and viability of the project at this point. But obviously, as time goes on, then we will sort of start talking towards that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rambau, for that presentation. And we will now move on to our next speaker of the day, who is from the Southern African Resource Watch, Advocate Davi Malungisa. He will be speaking to us on the energy transition as well as critical minerals. Over to you, Davi.
Good morning. It's a pleasure. I'm told I must not say all protocol observed, but I'm tempted to do that now. I've not put down the hierarchy of I will try to share PowerPoint so that you can follow.
Yes, please share your screen.
Okay.
And your presentation. Please share your presentation. Thank you.
All right. You can see it.
Yes, we can see it. Please put it on present. Yeah, we can see it. Please put it on presentation mode.
Okay, is it fine now?
Yes, it's perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. I'm standing in for my colleague who is in another meeting. I'm in the Democratic Republic of Congo at the moment. I'm based in South Africa, but we have a workshop that's taking place here in the DRC, and so I've taken over the presentation. I'll just start by saying what is the Southern Africa Resource Watch. It is an independent organization registered as a non-profit organization in South Africa. And the aim is to see improved human conditions through the good governance of the region's resources. The organization's mission is to promote participatory, transparent, and accountable utilization of extractive resources, but broadly natural resources. In the work that I'm advising the Southern Africa Resource Watch on, I'm focusing on the just energy transition. And in that transition, we're saying no one must be left behind, consistent with the Sustainable Development Goals, and also that we need to advocate for climate resilience. So this pillar that I'm part of, it's hosting projects that are exploring policy and advocacy strategies, linking energy transition minerals to the global energy transition and climate change for socioeconomic and structural change. So the context is that we all know that the extractive industry drives economic growth. It creates jobs. It also supports the livelihoods of communities worldwide. So that is the best case scenario. And there's also an inverse angle where we know that with poor governance of natural resources, there can be ills such as corruption, illicit trade, and illicit financial flows. Those are some of the dark side, if you are looking at the dark sides of extractive industry. But this discussion is taking place in a different context than the mining that we've known for centuries. There's a global common agenda around terming the global warming. So the Paris Agreement has put some requirements that are of strategic importance to the mining of certain minerals that are crucial for the manufacturing of green technologies. So today, the mineral demand for clean energy technologies is expected to continue rising by at least 4 times by 2040 to meet climate commitments. A World Bank report even projected that the world will need 500% increase, for example, in lithium and cobalt by 2050 to meet the green energy transition. So this demand is also driven by, year after year, we know there are conference of parties under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. They try to increase the ambition so that we meet the net zero targets by 2050. And the most important one, which is important to critical minerals and green technologies, is the UAE consensus at COP28, where there was an agreement that we need to triple renewable energy installations by 2030. So you'll see that even if we are projecting to 2050, the need for renewable energy uptake sooner than later is also having a correlation with the increase that we are seeing in the increase in the scramble to access and control transitional minerals from especially from all major powers, the industrialized countries, and in also some middle powers such as Turkey and some of the oil producing countries in the Middle East that are also taking an interest in the transitional minerals. We also have seen expansion of geological surveys to discover new minerals, but a key challenge for Africa, for example, is that some countries don't even know what is underground. So it's like discoveries, it's a more for like, so in some situations in Zimbabwe, we have seen that artisanal or villagers are the ones who are finding lithium first before they are removed and actually sometimes disenfranchised and not to participate in the actual discovery. So we have some poor geosciences that should be subject that countries like Zambia have actually produced a copper strategy to mine about 3 million metric tons of copper by 2030. They've put a national strategy that is anchored on modern geological surveys. So what we have seen as well with this scramble is mergers and acquisitions, especially involving Chinese companies that are happening across SADC, from DRC, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Madagascar. You can see the presence of China over the past 20 years. And the counter from the US and EU, Japan, and other countries, you can see that the net effect has been intensification of geopolitics to access Africa's critical minerals. We have been discussing, and you all know now, that green technologies, we're talking of EVs, electric vehicles, battery storage systems, solar and wind. If we are talking of the global energy transition, but you can expand to use in defense and cell phone technologies if you just want to expand that demand pool. Then the green minerals, you will see I'm now saying green minerals, others will say critical minerals, energy transition minerals, strategic minerals, or development minerals. These are terms that are moving in different spaces. But criticality is better understood from the needs of users or consumers, not just the supplier. And you'll find then that even for the US, different departments, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, they will have their own lists of critical minerals at a sectoral level, because criticality then will be defined by a number of factors. And I've seen that Mapungubwe, you have also done about 9, you have identified 9 such factors in the concept note that we received. The disappointment is that we have seen big and very well done documents on critical minerals. Canada, they've got one, Australia, US, the EU, Japan, among others. They've a list that is, you don't doubt what is a critical mineral. And even the EU, you can see them putting, I think at one point there was a debate around uranium, where uranium has been put on the EU list. So it means these countries are better prepared because they have critical mineral strategies. And it's only in Zambia that we saw that there's an exception where there was a launch of a critical mineral strategy on 28 August 2024. But that strategy, if you look at it, just looking, I'm not saying read the contents, just looking at it, you'll see that it's very thin. And when we went through it, compared it with the Canadian or Australian one, then you begin to just say, yes, we are doing well, but there is a room for improvement in terms of analytical detail, diagnostics, and then what solutions are being proposed. But all said, we know certainly that SADC and to a large extent Africa is it's positioned as a global hub of these minerals. So it is a worry even for a more industrialized country compared to others, South Africa, that is still in the process of developing its critical mineral strategy. So by just known and potential transitional minerals in the SADC region, I'll just mention the big ones. Some of the names are really, you need to know the periodic table and for you to really unpack them. But we know that from what I'm putting here, the copper, DRC, Zambia, cobalt, DRC, manganese, zinc, lithium, the PGMs, rare earth elements, graphite, Mozambique, Madagascar, and I've put uranium, but I'm sure that's what we are trying to debate, whether uranium can take us the nuclear energy route within our energy mix. It remains a debatable question, and other minerals that I've not mentioned. And if you are then looking at the global share, then you can see that, you associate the global share with the technology in question. You are better placed. You have been talking of green hydrogen and the platinum group metals, and how then we are saying the share of global reserves. If you are looking at platinum, I think it's there 92%. When you look at cobalt for electric vehicles technologies, DRC, South Africa, Zambia, and we can go on, including for chromium, lithium. We are talking of Zimbabwe playing between number 5 and number 7 in the world. So then rare earth elements, countries like even Malawi, they are discovering, but they are not yet in commercial production. But if we are just looking at that potential, that's what is taking place, and it gives you a sense that we have real country endowments. South Africa, some of the percentages, I think they may be understating actually. But you can look at that even Tanzania is coming on board as a top nickel producer, and I've already mentioned that Zambia is going to be increasing its copper exploration and production. But that's not my point here. My point, I think, was to just indicate some of the opportunities and challenges that are taking place. So I will just highlight. I don't think I have enough time to really unpack everything here. There's a real dependence on export of minerals. Meaning that there's a vulnerability then to external shocks, which may affect investment into, for example, into lithium. If you just check the price of lithium, it went down, and you will have some real economic consequences for countries that are, or for companies that are just exporting the raw lithium. Then we have also limitations that are within our economies in Africa that also hinder the expansion or even the diversification in terms of the linkages. Mining sector, yes, forward and backward linkages, the supply chains, even of machinery, mining equipment. And you can see that the countries outside South Africa are not sufficiently diversifying and yielding fiscal benefits from the mineral economy. We also see that the global trade regime is not favorable to Africa. There is a real colonial pattern one can talk of, but also when you look east, the role of China has been actually. If I was in a area called Kolwezi, which they call the capital of cobalt in DRC. When I went there, just the visibility of trucks that are transporting unprocessed, so they are transporting earth to process in China, for example. You can just tell yourself that there's something very wrong just by observing the mountains or the landscape that is being degraded. You can tell that there is much that needs to be done. But if you are looking at this trade regime, I'm sure for trade economists who are here, you know that Africa's share of global trade has been hovering between 2% and 3%. And that's not good enough, but also the type of trade relations, you may see that they actually promote the export of African raw materials. So there has been an investment, for example, in the Lobito corridor, which passes through copper producing areas in Zambia, in DRC. There will be a railway link that will go to the Lobito port in Angola. Then you export your critical minerals unprocessed for the industrial countries, EU, US, and so forth. So those are, you can see if that the type of that kind of trade facilitation, trade facilitating infrastructure, logistics is geared towards creating corridors that are taking away the minerals. Please tell me how I'm doing on time so that I don't overrun my allocation. One person was telling me that, for example, if you look at the US, the Inflation Reduction Act, it promotes some form of protectionism. So we are seeing this kind of protectionism. We are seeing even China banning the export of certain green minerals or green technologies in favor of domestic manufacturing. The same we can talk of the EU, including some of the non-tariff barriers that may come, such as some carbon attempts to avoid carbon leakages that we can see with the CBAM in Europe. But if you also look at EU, it has got a critical minerals raw material act. So it's to give itself security around procuring raw materials in Africa. What am I trying to look at? I'm just saying that real policy in certain parts of Africa, we say policy rhetoric. In others, they've put substantive policies where they are saying this is an opportunity for Africa. Let's not miss the opportunity. Let's use this as an opportunity to add value, to industrialize, and so that we can have what the African Union Mineral Development Center is beginning to say: we need an equitable resource-based industrialization path centered on where the minerals. So they've produced a draft green mineral strategy for Africa, which is in line with the African mining vision. So you can see that even at a continental level, you tie it with the African free the continental free trade area, you see that there are real efforts to say this is the time to create value chains that are continental or regional based value chains. And I think in this discussion, that's the question that South Africa is thinking of its critical mineral strategy. Is there a thinking that the South African market or linkages are not sufficient, or even the raw materials are not, all of them, for example, for battery technologies, are not found in South Africa? You find them in DRC, you find graphite in Mozambique. Is it the time to also emphasize regional value chains where there's production sharing or cross-border industrial parks, industrial zones? I think that's the question that one can look at. So let's just pass through the value addition work between the one in Zambia and DRC, as well as the other one in South Africa, electric vehicle sector. I'll just highlight, I don't have the time to unpack. DRC and Zambia, they signed a cooperation agreement that they want to manufacture electric batteries, because DRC has copper and cobalt, Zambia a lot of copper and other minerals. So the two countries came together, I think should be in 2021 thereabout, or 2022, I can't recall the actual date. Then they signed an MOU. This followed a summit where the Bloomberg study showed that battery production, battery precursors in the DRC, if you are producing them there, the estimate was $39 million compared to $117 million in the USA. Then you compare to China and Poland. So just that competitiveness, I think the Bloomberg study was indicating to manufacturing in the SADC region, in DRC and Zambia. They then moved forward. They signed. They have done identified special economic zones for the batteries value chain. Some 2,000 hectares between the DRC and Zambia and Sindola. But with the support, you can see the partnerships that are emerging, support of Pan-African institutions, African Development Bank, African Import-Export Bank, and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. They went through pre-feasibility studies in March 2023, and unfortunately, we've seen now the survey, the result of the feasibility study. Unfortunately, they are separating. Zambia will be having its own special economic zone, and then DRC its own. So it means it's not what we thought it is, like a corridor, a trans boundary corridor, an industrial zone that can place an aggregate of interlinked industrial activities in terms of electric batteries. But they also want to move beyond to manufacture electric vehicle, which is that those three-wheeler vehicles that are prominent in most African economies, powered by electric batteries, your ion lithium batteries, or some other fashion. So you can see that there is this effort, but it's taking place in a very tricky global situation. So apart from this DRC Zambia cooperation agreement, USA came in and they signed a tripartite agreement. That's the USA, DRC, and Zambia, to support them on this particular initiative. But in the terms of in the MOU itself, you then find that the US is also trying to say it wants to support governance, ESG compliance and other factors that you really need to look at. The EU, Zambia, and DRC, they have other cooperation agreements in terms of their energy cooperation, energy transition cooperation. But some of these initiatives should find expression in the countries, the nationally determined contributions where the countries have their climate action plans, and to say, are they putting the manufacturing of these components, the manufacturing of the EVs, and especially the manufacturing of solar, wind, and battery storage systems. Can we have those manufactured here in the region? But because they use critical minerals that are found in the region. But that's not the case that we are finding. Even some colleagues I've met in the South African context, they are saying, leave China. Because they have overcapacity, and the solar panels made in China are cheaper. But remember, the energy transition is not a short term. So even China industrialized through special economic zones, and so some experts tell me that at that level, they were encouraging the relocation of global manufacturing capacity to China. Japan, we know that it wasn't at a stage where it just innovated. It even copied, but with variations. So it will be problematic to start to say Africa must not have an ambition to manufacture on the continent, and to put incentives that can encourage the relocation of manufacturing capacity from other global, using partnerships, for example, with the Toyota or other companies that are invested in the battery technologies. Mozambique's graphite, through United States government support to an Australian company, is being shipped in raw form, graphite, to California to manufacture batteries for Tesla. So there are disruptions that needs to be done. But maybe now we are tired of talking of Zambia DRC initiatives, because there's nothing tangible that we are seeing. Even the mineral security partnership with the EU, US, and Japan and others, you can see they released a list of projects that they are going to be supporting. And I was checking, I didn't see the DRC Zambia battery manufacturing initiative as one of those projects the last time that I checked. So we really need then to say what is happening. We have these obstacles that are real. Financial constraints. There's no capital. Private capital markets in Africa are not as advanced. Our development finance institutions need more capital as well. But maybe the case may be different for South Africa. But the real issue is that to add value, you really need capital and the financial, that is financial capacity. Our regulatory frameworks also, you can see when I give my next example that there's need for harmonization of mining and industrial policies at SADC level. Even SADC's Renewable Energy Action Plan, it doesn't talk much of manufacturing. It's more about increasing uptake of green technologies. And that is an issue because regulatory frameworks, that is where you put your incentives. That if you want to have tax incentives, they must really be in compliance with the tax laws of the country. And so you really need to be carefully looking at the tariffs, what sort of tariffs can encourage regional cooperation, regional integration, and also as the creation of African markets. But what has also been another challenge is even cooperation beyond industries to energy cooperation. You will see, even I think it's one of the examples that has been given when you are looking at South Africa's chromium value chain, that at one point I understand it was 100% local, feeding into stainless steel, and maybe that may still be the case. But the factor that if you have energy shortage or energy is expensive, then your competitiveness is actually going to give results of possible deindustrialization and job cuts, which may be not the case. Then to say, how can you come and present a case for value addition when you don't have enough infrastructure, you don't have enough logistics, your road to rail processes are delaying, and there are real challenges around your ports, your capacity in terms of logistics and so forth. So these are some of the factors, but also there's just in some countries, there's a lack of industrial capacity. Investment in research, development, and innovation is not at a stage where we see companies promoting that, or governments teaming with companies to promote that. I know for South Africa, there's quite a lot of investment in the battery storage system that's taking place at I think the CISR, I think, but at what point are we going to reach commercial and operate at a scale that we can say we are industrializing? I'll quickly look at South Africa's automotive sector.
Please wrap up.
Okay, I'm wrapping up.
Thank you.
Until last week, I was of the belief that South Africa suffers from lack of ambition on its own and on the continent, because we know that it has got a well-developed automotive sector. So I looked at the automotive sector white paper, and yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. First, there is a mention that South Africa must add value to its critical minerals, and that means it can actually start thinking seriously of EV battery manufacturing. But I think at paragraph 4.3 or chapter 4 of that report, it says that South Africa must work with other African countries so that the EV battery value chain is completed in partnership with US, they mentioned Chinese, EU, Japanese manufacturers, so that there's a full value chain production on the continent. I thought, because I've been looking at the South Africa's mineral beneficiation policy, and I was just saying that there's not sufficient mention of value addition of critical minerals there. They mention hydrogen and others. So if you then look at to say, oh, this white paper, November 2023, is actually talking the language that some of us are looking for, then I saw that there is a real potential. I've other aspects I was going to look at, but I think those are common cause. ESGs, the local impact on local communities. There are challenges there. Issues of social license to operate are very important. The rights of indigenous people who are being forced to move from certain mining sites to give way for critical minerals mining. So those are some of ESG elements that needs to be looked at. We have these shaming images, girl children who are actually in the value chain. And these are really issues that one will say no to in terms of labor rights. You can see these pictures. The young boys, instead of going to school, they are chasing after this, and the conditions there, that's in the DRC there, you can see that these are not good at all for a liberated continent, to say the least, but also for labor regimes in a situation where we have weak unionization. So but they are good examples. There are also community benefit negotiations that are taking place. This is in DRC, where communities are getting money to develop their infrastructure from mining companies. And I think I can stop here. Let me stop here and interface with your questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate Davi, for that presentation. Yes, there will be opportunities to touch on that on the Q&A section. We will now move along to our next speaker, who is from Mintech, Dr. Oliver Baron, who will speak to us about the technological advances in fuel cell as well as electrolyzer technologies. Over to you, Dr. Baron.
Good afternoon, everyone. As was stated, I'm Olivia Baden. I'm a chief scientist at Mintech. I run the fuel cell programs, which consists of Mintech's fuel cell manufacturing program, as well as the isocatalysis program based here at Mintech. So I'll just launch straight into my presentation about the technological advancements in fuel cells and electrolyzer technologies. Is everyone able to?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. As I said before, I'll be speaking on the technological advances in fuel cell and electrolyzer technologies. I'll just give a brief background for the fuel cell and electrolyzer drive. So the key drivers for fuel cell and electrolyzer technologies is the transition to the net zero or low carbon economy. This has been influenced by factors such as government initiatives and policies to decarbonize, which has resulted in a surge in green hydrogen economy initiatives globally. And this has led to acceleration in implementation of electrolyzer technologies and increased developments in new energy vehicles as well as energy diversification schemes. Some of the demand drivers for PGMs, particularly, as stated in the majority of South Africa, the PGMs are beneficiated outside of the country. So the primary use of the PGMs are mostly for platinum, palladium, and rhodium, and they are primarily used 61% for autocatalysts as catalytic converters in the automotive sector. Other sectors take up a smaller percentage of the usage, such as jewelry, electronics, chemicals, and glass, and other sectors. In terms of global supply and demand, the primary demand is for platinum, palladium, and rhodium. And since 2023, if you look at the graph on the right, you can see the demand for platinum and palladium has exceeded the supply. So in terms of global reserves, South Africa accounts for 69% of global platinum group elements, which is the platinum, palladium, and rhodium reserves. So South Africa is the largest producer of platinum, followed secondly by Russia. Zimbabwe also accounts for about 9% of the global reserves. So if we look at SADC's PGM reserves, we can see that in South Africa, the PGMs are primarily located in the Bushveld complex and in Zimbabwe in the Great Dyke region. The Bushveld complex has more than 30 operational mines distributed across the western, eastern, and northern limbs. PGM exploration and mining has traditionally focused on the western limb of the Bushveld complex, where PGM grades are higher. But this trend has shifted as mining companies develop new mines and increase production, resulting in more exploration and mining across the northern and eastern limbs. The principal source of PGMs in South Africa has traditionally been the Merensky and Upper Group 2 seams, supported by the Platteries, despite its lower PGM content. Much of the Merensky reef, which is rich in platinum, has been depleted. So with mining currently occurring predominantly in the UG2 reef, which is palladium and rhodium rich compared to Merensky. The PGM value chain in South Africa is well established, with SA dominating in the upstream market and not in the downstream market. So there's no value addition While the leading PGM mining companies are based in South Africa, the majority of downstream PGM product manufacturers are based in the EU, North America, Japan, China, and South Korea. Some of the critical minerals of interest in hydrogen fuel cell and electrolyzer technologies, so obviously PGMs, so platinum, ruthenium, and iridium, and some transition metal elements such as cobalt, nickel, iron, and chromium. The advancements in hydrogen fuel cells in the components, specifically in catalyst development, has been mostly from design improvements. The utilization of platinum nanowires or nanoframes for improved activity and durability, platinum-based core shell catalyst alloyed with transition metal elements for improved performance, improved durability, and all of these things account for higher power and lower PGM usage, which ultimately decreases the cost of the overall system. There's also been some developments on new innovative supports such as manganese, nitrogen, carbon supports. So while PGMs or while fuel cells have always received a bit of skepticism because of the high cost due to the PGMs, there's been side-by-side development of PGM-free metal catalysts for fuel cell applications. So while there's been advances in the performance of these PGM-free metal catalysts, none of them compare to the activity and stability that platinum-based catalysts are able to achieve. Also still sticking on components, in fuel cells, we have the membrane electrode assembly, which is basically the heart of the fuel cell, where you have your anode and cathode, which have your catalyst layers applied to them. So the main advancements are in manufacturing scale-up. So roll-to-roll technologies are employed by fuel cell MEA manufacturers such as Johnson Matthey Fuel Cells, Gore, Ballard Power Systems, and Cummins. And there's been some modification of electrode designs for roll-to-roll coating technology, and cost reduction is achieved through economies of scale. So high volume manufacturing reduces the cost of the overall system. In terms of the stack and system, there's been design improvements in 3D printing of bipolar plates and reducing the overall system weight, to name but a few. So for electrolyzers, particularly, well, obviously on PEM electrolyzers, so we have design improvements from utilizing platinum black as an additive in the anode, which reduces the cost without loss in performance. And this addresses the iridium scarcity issue by utilizing almost 80% less iridium without sacrificing the performance. And we also have new developments along the high voltage, high pressure PEM electrolyzers, where overall system cost is reduced and efficiency is increased, but this is still in the early stages of development. There are many issues that still need to be resolved. So the opportunity for South Africa. So in terms of the hydrogen economy, these initiatives are expected to increase the demand for PGMs. It can drive exploration efforts and new mine development. The mining industry is impacted by hydrogen technologies. The PGM requirement by these hydrogen technologies can replace the loss from the auto catalyst sector for the internal combustion engine, decarbonization of the mining sector. And in terms of economic impact, it can sustain the mining sector jobs. So there's also potential for new manufacturing industry in fuel cell and electrolyzer value add products. And if you look at the graphs on the right, the top graph shows that the PGM sector continues to play a vital role in the South African economy, with exports far exceeding local sales. The graph 2 shows, the graph at the bottom shows the fuel cell shipments grew from 21 to 22, with PEM fuel cell vehicles dominating shipments to supply the local demand in China and Korea. So if you can see from the first table, it's Asia, followed by Europe, followed by Asia, North America, Europe, followed by the rest of the world in terms of fuel cell shipments. So overall, the global transport market is dominated by fuel cell shipments for vehicle applications as well as stationary applications. But for vehicle applications, it's mostly for light-duty vehicle applications. Some challenges facing the fuel cell and electrolyzer industry. The main challenge is cost. One of the main challenges is cost. So the cost of the PEM fuel cell and electrolyzer systems are still hindering widespread adoption. The RDI for these technologies requires large investment. In terms of infrastructure, is large-scale development of hydrogen storage and refueling station installations is slow. Manufacturing has its own challenges because high volume manufacturing required to achieve the economies of scale needed for cost reduction require additional RDI, as you know, lab scale production methods don't always translate into high volume manufacturing methods. There's also a lack of critical skills for scientific research and in the production sector. So that illustrates the skills and expertise required for the hydrogen technology sector: chemists, chemical engineers, mechanical and electrical engineers, and technicians, all of these trained in the sector. Moving on to Mintec's fuel cell program. So Mintec has developed a suite of fuel cell catalysts, approximately 20 formulations, 11 scale to 1 kilogram batch sizes. Develop human capacity as long as fundamental knowledge on catalyst and MEA production. If you look at the image on the right, you'll see the portfolio of catalysts that we've developed. Some of these platinum-only catalysts can be used as the cathode in the electrolyzers as well. So basically the ISO-V series, the ISO-GV series, and the ISO-GK series are also used in electrolyzer applications. Mintec has developed a strategic program for fuel cell manufacturing to establish and demonstrate a commercial MEA manufacturing facility and systems capability that can be leveraged through partnership to a substantial commercialization of local fuel cell technology. So this program was initiated in 2022, where we had a fuel cell catalyst batch production capacity of 1 kilogram per batch. It was then thought that we need to embrace more parts of the fuel cell value chain. So Mintec, as stated, embarked on MEA manufacturing technology. So we hope to demonstrate this MEA manufacturing technology by next year, with increased in catalyst production to 10 kilogram batch manufacturing by 2028, and fuel cell systems and stacks developed through partnerships, both local and international. Some of the scale-up progress or high volume manufacturing we've achieved. So Mintec's fuel cell manufacturing program can essentially be seen as phase 2 of the Mintec fuel cell strategy and focuses on commercialization of the phase 1 outputs. The phase 1 outputs are the high circuit catalysis outputs, so the catalyst outputs. So we want to expand our product offering by incorporating more of the fuel cell value chain and concentrate efforts on high volume manufacturing techniques. So the image on the left is a typical lab scale production for MEAs, and the images on the right are typically for large volume or high volume manufacturing, so roll-to-roll coating techniques and roll-to-roll machinery. So South Africa predominantly plays in the upstream sector of the fuel cell and electrolyzer value chain. But Mintec, through its fuel cell manufacturing program, is entering the midstream and the downstream segments of the value chain. So PGM electrocatalysts, electrodes, and MEAs. So these are have a high feasibility of success, whereas the stack and system manufacture are potentially feasible, but the membranes and the GDL components of the membrane electrode assembly have low feasibility. So this slide just shows some of the demonstrations where Mintek's fuel cell catalysts have been used at Impala, one at Mintek, and one at UKZN. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paron, for that enlightening presentation. We will now move on to our last speaker of the day. Please remember to engage us on the Q&A function so that we'll take a few questions after. Our next speaker of the day is Dr. Lebo Mphahlele Ntasa, who will be speaking to us on critical minerals and battery energy storage systems. Over to you, Lebo. Lebo, you are muted.
Sorry about that. Let me start afresh. My name is Lebo Mphahlele Ntasa. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Agent Battery Storage, and I'm going to talk on lithium batteries in particular because that is what we do. And I will talk also from a business point of view, not from a researcher point of view, because I am in business in the energy storage area. So this is my topics that I've been guided to particularly focus on. This is not moving. So the role of battery energy systems in the energy sector, the emerging opportunities and challenges for battery manufacturers in the African continent, and what needs to be done to ensure the longevity and competitiveness of battery manufacturing in South Africa. So starting with energy storage, I'm going to talk largely on what is happening. We see that there is a wide-scale adoption of lithium battery energy storage in the market, and we even see that there is a need, or there have been tenders issued widely through the RIP. Even Eskom has issued that. So I would give full marks that there's understanding that energy storage in the form of batteries is necessary, even in this hot sun of ours in the African continent, because the sun does. So when the sun sets, we should have been storing all that energy in batteries to use at night. And I hear from Eskom as well, they've announced that they no longer would appreciate getting any more solar PV work that does not include battery storage because of the very reason of the sun setting. So we are excited in the field around the fact that there is wide-scale adoption of lithium battery. However, there are certain problems that we are associating with this approach, is that Eskom and many other players tend to then give too large tenders. That means those would favor international Chinese and European players. So they make giga-size batteries. Well, we understand the economies of scale, but the issue then is within our country is that then everything is outsourced to very often European companies that are large, that are even larger than Eskom to be doing that. And so we are not growing our capabilities and skills further. So we know how to do battery storage to a certain point, but we are not growing any further because of this approach. So that's the first problem that we're having. The second one is that government is growing, or there is other battery storage systems that are growing. However, we do not see traction because we do not see much support from government itself. For an example, we have vanadium in South Africa, a lot of it, and there's vanadium flow energy storage batteries that have been tested and they have been done in other parts of the world, but we do not see traction in growing in this field. And the people that can really push around it is the very ESCOMs, is the very government departments, etc. So government plays a very important role of leading where they can, and we find that in the space we have some, but there is a long way to go. And even when large contracts are done, we really would like to see a space where government must insist on using as much local content as possible. I mean, from my own company as well, we do container science, and there's 2, 3, 4, 5 other people within the country that are capable of doing that. So even if you bring in all the cells from China and a lot of the components, these big tenders must include a lot of local content. But you often find that as South Africans ourselves, we shoot ourselves in the foot. If you are a BEE partner of those Chinese manufacturers, etc., your role would be to lobby government to say, please lower the local content requirements, you know, so that whereas as South Africans, we should be insisting that we would like to get onto the skills train and be able to grow and do exactly what they're doing. So in a way, as people that participate in this sector, as business people that participate in this sector, we often find ourselves, or some of us, not working in the interest of the country, and it's something that needs to be looked into. So I'm moving then into the e-mobility. You must remember as well that the large scale participation of Africa in critical metal value chains lies in the pace in which we adopt e-mobility. I'll show you why just later on. So the battery value chain, it's known. I think other people have touched on it. We talk about mining, we talk about refining, cell components, cell manufacturing, battery pack assembly, and applications. Now, in our country, in South Africa, we have battery pack assembly. None of us are doing any cell manufacturing. Cell manufacturing is still in China because you need big volumes to be able to put giga size or gigafactories of cell manufacturing. So, but in order for us to grow into cell manufacturing, it means application here has to be large, because you must recall as well that with motor vehicles, you must put the battery manufacturing where the car assemblies are. So because the batteries are very heavy, so you cannot manufacture batteries elsewhere and then bring them into the car manufacturers. They must be in the same environment, which also shows, I don't know if you can read this, that where there is car manufacturing, there is also battery manufacturing. So in South Africa, if we do not move into battery manufacturing, we will lose our ability to do e-mobility, because there is no way that large battery packs for cars would move from China to us and to export. So we have to continent grow our e-mobility scale for us to be able to participate in the higher value chain of manufacturing of cells. Because why we need to manufacture cells is because the base metals themselves are in the continent. They leave to be manufactured as cells in China, and then they come back to us as for us to only assemble them into batteries. I must also add, I'm encouraged. In Cape Town, it was announced the first gigafactory for battery assembly was unveiled, 100 million rand fund that is in Cape Town. A gigafactory for battery assembly, not for the cells. So we need to get a lot more of the battery economy for us to be able to manufacture the cells in this continent. A lot of Chinese, a lot of other people in other countries are keen, and I think it would be good if we have the cells manufactured in Africa. However, you can't manufacture, like I said, cells in or for mobility where there is no market within e-mobility. So just to emphasize as well that in us growing our critical mass value chains, we need to urgently move into the application side, because then we will be able to move higher into cell manufacturing and cell components. So South Africa has a potential for battery manufacturing. Well, in this continent, in fact, we have mineral resources, we have existing industrial base, so the capabilities is probably all that we need. We need a bigger government involvement in insisting on going green in areas where government has got control. I mean, government is the biggest buyer of goods and services, and they also have large fleets. And if they move into EV themselves, it would help the country a lot. And I'm talking in particular in local government, for an example. A lot of the cars that move around in local cities and towns stay there, so there also cannot be even a question of charging stations and things like that. So just to move on, do we have some traction? Yes, there is some traction within our country as well. You can see that some buses in some local government have already got electric powered buses, and etc. But it is not anywhere near where it would like to be for us to be able to get into the critical mass and get into the manufacturing of battery cells themselves. So a lot needs to be done there. But what are the small things that we can do as a country? You will find that in South Africa, as an example, I mean, we have a lot of last mile vehicles that still largely based on petrol and diesel, whereas in some other countries, like Ethiopia, they already have got, for their e-mobility, they are building these because government has moved to ban fuel vehicles. Banning is rather a strong word, so it's not what we usually encourage, but it shows the tension there, and you see many other countries are moving this way, whereas in South Africa, where we are the most industrialized and with a lot of capability, we are still a little bit slow in adopting. So we're looking at light deliveries, bus fleets, forklifts, local government fleets. So here I'm to people who are in this forum, where you sit in boards, where you sit in areas of influence, where there's fleets involved, we've got to ask critical questions around why are we not growing our e-mobility sector, so that the large manufacturers can also join in and put their manufacturing here. I saw there's an e-mobility policy by government that the previous speaker said was developed for November 2023, which is a good thing. But when you talk to the manufacturers, the likes of the BMWs, etc., they say we are not yet ready to put in e-mobility in South Africa until the African market itself has got some e-mobility transition. Because we cannot just make electric cars for export. They have to be firstly be consumed within the market for critical mass, and then maybe can we export. So if we don't use electric vehicles ourselves, it would be difficult for people like BMWs and Toyotas to put their plants here for their vehicles, even for export, if there is no internal market. So there is also, this is like I said, from a consumer point of view, it's not easy to adopt. But if we see large scale adoption by government, where they operate fleets, it would probably begin to help us change the mindsets. In the upper end of the electric vehicle or car market, you see hybrid cars, you see EVs are beginning to get hold, but there is nothing stopping us to get EV on the lowest end of the market with things like scooters and motorbikes. So we think government be a little more aggressive and stimulate this market even further. Like I said, from a manufacturing point of view, there's a number of players that can do battery, and we can support this. And if we get large amount of conversion to e-mobility, then we will be able to build cells here. And guess what? The cells would probably be cheaper than everywhere else in the world as well, to our advantage. So recommendations then for a sustainable competitive industry is that there is room for improved policy by government, particularly where government buys. They need to be a little bit more forceful and drive the market that way. Regional cooperation and integration is key. Not one country would be able to absorb or be able to get gigafactories that would supply one country. So we need to work closely as countries to be able to leverage our strength in numbers. But skills development and education is also critical. The more we do where government does tenders, local content, then begin to grow our skills in area. So just to conclude as well, I mentioned that South Africa will lose our motor industry if we do not grow the EV sector. And two, the old outsourcing model to cheaper labor does not apply. As you saw, the manufacturer of batteries is where the EVs are being consumed. We need urgent government intervention. I've mentioned it twice, and then we need local government content in utility scale base. There again, the policy is there, but when it comes to implementation, we short. So in short, my conclusion is, as South African government, we've got everything. We just need to be a little bit forceful and grow a pair, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lebo, for that illuminating presentation. We are now going to move to the Q&A section. We have a few minutes to address some of the questions that have come up along the program. So I would just like to invite all the speakers to just unmute themselves, and I will be reading out some of the questions. And so the first question that had come up, I think it was around infrastructure, and it is about what is government been doing in terms of stimulating green mobility in the freight sector from an infrastructure point of view. I think Dr. Kavarendwe, maybe you may come in on this one and sort of speak to some of the infrastructure development, if there are any, from the DSTI's perspectives and plans. Secondly, I think a question for Davi to speak to some of the policies that the Southern Africa or the African continent is planning on in terms of shifting the focus from mineral exploitation towards mineral beneficiation. What are some of those policies, and if there are any? I think the third question for Olivia as well as Lebo, you've spoken to the lack of skills in the country, particularly for electrolyzer and fuel cells, as well as the battery industry. I think the question is around, we have a high unemployment rate in South Africa, and we have a high unemployment rate in terms of graduates. So my question really is, what in real terms, how are we going to solve this issue of skills? Because we have programs that are already aiming towards producing skills. Is there a mismatch? How can we solve this problem in real terms? I think we can start with the question for Kavarende. Is Kavarende still on the line? We can just move on to the next person who can answer. Maybe let's move on to Davi while Kavarende thinks about this question.
Thank you. I think you can only look at the African Mining Vision, which is 2009. So it's being updated just so that it can also capture the critical minerals aspects. So that's 2009. Then we have got the draft African Green Mineral Development strategy. So it's in draft form, but the African Union, they are hoping that it will be adopted by the next heads of government summit, maybe in February, from the African Union side. That one is the more ambitious one and more specific in terms of creation of value chains and manufacturing on the continent. But it also feeds into some of the processes in the African the continental free trade area. So there, I think what needs to be done is just to double check to what extent value chains are being promoted, the type of tariffs to promote intra-Africa trade. Because remember, if Africa is presenting itself as a continent with about 1.3 billion people, then it can start punching at the same weight as India, as China, but also there are talks not only in the area of value addition. You remember I said access to power is a problem in terms of energy to power our industries. It can work with the hydrogen economy, but also if you are looking at Grand Inga Dam and other hydro potential on the continent, you can see that Inga Dam alone can power the rest of Africa and export, so they say. But there's no sufficient political will. If you check that South Africa and the DRC signed an Inga, project support MOU. That's during the presidents of Zuma, I think 2012. And up to now, they are still saying they are now going to do more. But if we address that, you can see that issue of value chains is going to work. But also the financing of these plans, most of them, they are financed from the European Union. So if you look at the regional strategy for SADC on renewable energy, which does not look at value chains, it just looks at uptake. So you find that also there's a problem on who is financing those plans. But finally, the African Mineral Development Center it's an arm of the African Union, but its protocol to make it operational has not been ratified yet. So it's just a loose project in the AU with only 5 members who have ratified the protocol. So there's also the question of political will or other factors institutionally, which we can reduce to leadership, that we need bold leadership at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Davi. Over to you, Lebo and Olivia.
Let me
Everyone. Oh,
Okay.
I was going to go first.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'll give it a go, Lebo, and then you can follow on. So Yes, historically speaking, there are programs for skills development. Like I myself am from the HISA program. So I did all of my postgrad. So it was master's, honors, PhD in the HISA program. So the problem is if you didn't stay on in the institution or in the center of competence or in, the academic institution, you didn't have work because there isn't a local market or a local manufacturing industry available. So I'm only still in this field because I studied further. So we currently like for RDI, obviously you require a higher level of education and skills and expertise. So for that you need like your masters and your PhDs. But for production, you don't need to have and manufacturing, you don't need to have a PhD, you don't need to have a master's, and you don't need to have an honors. So we've changed our approach from only looking for masters and PhDs into now looking for people that we can train and upskill. But obviously it requires a lot of like investment from our side, and we're currently engaging with investment funds or energy or some partners to subsidize this, because as correct, like the statement was correct, that foreign investors are wary of investing in an economy that doesn't have the skills and expertise necessary to execute. So they've received they've received funding where they want to drive the skills development for these applications, and want these unemployed graduates or trainees to be employed at either research councils, universities, or whatever, for the specific purpose to go into the industry when it is when the market is there, when the industry is in South Africa, when fuel cells and electrolyzer technology takes off to such an extent that we need all of these skills.
Thank
Libo,
you.
maybe you can add on.
Yes, thanks. From our point of view, the skills that we need in battery assembly or in manufacturing electrical and level of skills that are relevant would be your M6. And what we do as industry is we engage with technical colleges to give inputs. And I think there was a workshop that we joined. We've promised that we will ensure that some of our engineers that we've got in our facilities would give lectures and would also give a point of view of battery storage or even renewable energy in general in the sector. So we are excited, in fact, that there will be better collaboration between us and the colleges that are around us. We've already touched base with our local college as well, and we will ensure that the skills that we believe we need in our sector gets included in the curriculums that are out there. And when I say our sector, I'm not even talking about battery storage on its own. I said in the renewable energy space in general. So yes, skills are critical. And the other way of gaining skills, like I said, is for us to do higher or more complicated work. And for that, we need a government to be intentional in ensuring that we build capacity even at the higher end of the market. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lebo, for that. I think you spoke also about regional integration. What I wanted to know is that we have been speaking about regional integration a lot lately in these spaces, but in real terms and from a business point of view, what needs to be done? What are the catalytic interventions that are needed in order to make that a reality, considering that we know that South Africa has battery minerals such as manganese, the DRC has cobalt, and our neighboring countries have graphite as well. So from a business, what do you think maybe is lacking, and what do we need to do to make this a reality for the continent?
like I said in my presentation, the biggest issue of adding value to the minerals that we're doing in this continent is for us to stimulate the use of those minerals within. So if it's EV, the more EV we take, the more it becomes economic for us to put the plants here. So there has been attempts, and in fact, you will find if you Google that there has been people who have even announced plants in the continent, and they often are frustrated with the volumes that we don't have high enough volumes. So it is where the issue is, but the biggest thing is, like I said, we see some traction where the usage is growing. The more the usage of the final products is in this continent, the more it will be viable for us to then get into the manufacturing. And we are looking forward to that. And possibly in the next 10 years or so, we will see a different picture from what we're seeing today.
Thank you very much, Lebo. And now and our last question for this webinar that we have is from Hope, and it says, are we not shooting ourselves in the foot by wanting to focus on the EVs when we have almost 70% of PGMs? Should we not focus on other green energy technologies that support our PGM endowments, like hydrogen cell, to be our strategic energy source? And I would like to direct this question to MISTRA's Executive Director.
Can I perhaps give my view?
Yes, Lebo, you can go ahead.
So which technology should we adopt? The hydrogen because of PGMs or any other? Now, from a manufacturing point of view, we are always driven by the market. So if the motor manufacturers have already made their decision and going lithium, we probably would go for lithium. And however, in this space, there is room for different technologies. So there would be sectors that would to do hydrogen, and we must. That is why it's not a question of one or the other. We usually in this continent of ours are very often technology followers. And you've seen in my presentation where I said the vanadium battery, we've got vanadium, we've got everything, but the battery is not picking up because the world is leading on the lithium. So it's very difficult to try and convince the world to say, don't go there, rather go there. But the world also shows us that there is a need for hydrogen in the space. So we must ensure that we move with speed. And the part I like about the hydrogen compared to the lithium is that the hydrogen journey would probably be better for this country than the lithium journey. And the involvement of government at this early stage will ensure that the hydrogen probably works better for us than the lithium has. So and I would like to congratulate government for their thinking on that. So yes, it's not either or, but yes, we must move with speed also to ensure that the hydrogen economy works. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Lebo, for those insights. And we have come to an end of this event, and I would like to thank all our speakers for today for taking the time and availing yourselves and sharing your knowledge with us. We highly appreciate that. Please, you can continue to engage MISTRA on these matters via our website as well as via the hashtag online. We will be releasing MISTRA's report on PGMs in the new year, and please be on the lookout for that. And with that,